I stood in the grand hallway of the mansion, its opulence suffocating me. This was the largest family gathering I had ever attended, a celebration of my brother-in-law's latest business venture, and I was supposed to blend in. But as the laughter and clinking of champagne glasses echoed through the high ceilings, I could feel the eyes of my wealthy in-laws piercing through me like daggers. "Look at her, isn't she adorable?" my sister-in-law Claire announced to the room. The gathering turned and all eyes fell upon me. The aspiring artist? Her voice dripped with sarcasm, and the laughter that followed rang harshly in my ears. I couldn't tell if I was more humiliated by the spotlight or by her mockery. I tried to smile to shake off the sting of her words, but my insecurities bubbled just beneath the surface. I had left my corporate job to pursue my passion for painting, believing it would bring me fulfillment. Instead, standing in front of these affluent people, all I felt was the weight of their expectations pressing down hard on my shoulders. In their world, my dreams were nothing more than whimsical fantasies, and Claire was always eager to remind me of that. As I scanned the room, taking in the golden chandeliers and the rich velvet drapes, I couldn't help but feel like an imposter. Everyone around me belonged to a different universe, one where wealth dictated respect and ambition was measured in bank balances. Claire, with her perfect hair and designer dress, encapsulated everything I loathed and envied. She was the golden child, the favorite of my in-laws, and her biting comments felt like a symphony of cruel jests orchestrated to remind me of my place. "What's the matter? Did your latest piece not sell?" she continued, her voice laced with mock concern. The laughter grew, and I could see my mother-in-law, a regal woman with an expression of thinly veiled disdain, nodding along as if this was all some grand performance. Her eyes darted between me and Claire, her favorite, as if weighing our worth against each other. If you've ever been underestimated by family, you'll understand every part of what happened next. My cheeks flushed with embarrassment and I felt the urge to flee. But deep down, something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the years of pent-up frustration or perhaps the realization that I was tired of playing the fool in their lavish game. I wouldn't let Claire's words define me any longer. I excused myself with a weak smile, retreating to the balcony for a breath of fresh air. The night was beautiful, the stars twinkling in the sky, but all I felt was the sting of humiliation mixed with a simmering anger. I leaned against the rail, letting the cool breeze wash over me. Below, the perfectly manicured gardens glimmered under spotlights, a stark reminder of their wealth, a wealth that often passed judgment on those who didn't measure up. My husband Alex joined me moments later, concern etching his features. "Are you okay?" he asked, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "I'm fine," I replied, even though I felt anything but fine. I could sense his discomfort, knowing how much his family's approval mattered to him. But then again, why should I let their opinion dictate my happiness? Alex sighed. "I wish Claire would just be nice for once." "It doesn't matter," I insisted, my voice firmer than I felt. "It's not just her, it's all of them, the way they look at me like I'm some kind of charity case." The words spilled from me, raw and honest. "I'm not here to beg for their acceptance, Alex." He nodded, but I could see the doubt shadowing his eyes. "Just remember, they come from a different world. They don't understand." His voice trailed off, and I knew he meant well, but it was frustrating. Why was I always the one who had to adapt? Returning inside, the atmosphere felt even more suffocating. The laughter continued, and Claire was regaling yet another tale, this time about her extravagant shopping trip to Paris. The way she spoke, as though money equated to happiness, left a sour taste in my mouth. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that true worth wasn't measured in dollars, but I knew that wouldn't change her perspective. The rest of the evening passed in a haze of condescension and forced smiles. I made small talk with a few distant relatives who were kind enough but entirely oblivious to the patronizing undertones of their questions. "So, how's your little art project going? I bet it's a fun hobby," they would say, as though my life's ambition was merely a pastime. I finally retreated back to the balcony, feeling the need for solitude. The anxiety of the evening weighed heavily on me, and I hated how easily I allowed it to get to me. There had to be a way to reclaim my dignity, to prove to myself and to them that I wasn't just the poor relative they made me feel I was. As I stood there, I caught sight of the moon's reflection on the surface of the pool, shimmering like a beacon of possibility. An idea began to take root in my mind, a quiet whisper that urged me to change the narrative. Maybe tonight was the last time I'd let them push me around. I returned to the gathering, my heart racing with a mixture of defiance and determination. The night had transformed from a moment of humiliation into a catalyst for growth. I would show them that I wasn't just a passive bystander in their world of wealth. I had my own dreams, my own ambitions, and I would find a way to make them see that. As I re-entered the room, Claire caught my eye and smirked, but this time, instead of crumbling under her gaze, I stood tall. I would not be broken. My story was just beginning, and I was ready to take back the power. Little did they know, beneath the surface of this seemingly meek artist lay a determination that was about to challenge the very foundations of their wealthy empire. As I re-entered the mansion, the atmosphere felt charged with a tension I couldn't quite place. The laughter that floated through the air now felt like a cacophony of judgment, each note a reminder of my place in this affluent family. I made my way back to the crowd, determined to navigate through the swarm of condescending smiles and veiled insults. But the moment I stepped into the living room, Claire seized the opportunity to strike again. "Did you hear about the new gallery opening downtown?" she announced loudly, her voice ringing with feigned enthusiasm. "I heard they only accept artists who can prove they've sold a certain number of pieces. It must be tough to get noticed if you're, not exactly a household name." The laughter that followed felt like daggers aimed straight at my heart. Suppressing the urge to retort, I forced a smile, my mind racing. Why was I allowing her to get under my skin? Each remark felt like a carefully crafted weapon designed to whittle away at my confidence. Yet the more she poked and prodded, the more I realized I had to find a way to shield myself from this emotional onslaught. Throughout the evening, I observed the dynamics at play. My in-laws, seemingly oblivious to their own cruelty, reveled in their wealth, drawing lines between themselves and anyone who dared to step outside their golden circle. Even Alex, who had always been my ally, seemed caught in their web of expectations. I noticed him laughing at a story Claire told about her latest vacation, a lavish getaway that I could only dream of, and a pang of resentment twisted in my gut. "Look at her," Claire exclaimed, pointing at me as if I was an exhibit in a museum. "She truly believes her little paintings are going to change the world. Isn't that adorable?" The laughter that erupted felt like a tidal wave crashing over me. I could feel my cheeks flush with embarrassment, but beneath it, a fire began to ignite. Why did they get to define my worth? With every sardonic comment, I felt more like a puppet in their twisted game, dancing to their tune of superiority. I had hoped that with time, things would improve, that they would come to accept me as part of the family. Instead, I was reminded repeatedly that I was an outsider, a mere shadow in their world of privilege. In a moment of clarity, I stepped back from the crowd to catch my breath. The air outside was cooler, a stark contrast to the stifling warmth inside. I leaned against the balcony railing, staring at the sprawling gardens below, meticulously maintained like the lives of my in-laws. Each rose, each perfectly trimmed hedge was a testament to their wealth and status, but to me, it represented something far more sinister, a world that thrived on comparison and control. As I gathered my thoughts, Alex appeared beside me again, concern etched on his face. "You shouldn't let Claire get to you," he said softly, wrapping an arm around my waist. "She doesn't understand what it's like to struggle for what you want." His words were meant to comfort me, but they only served to deepen my frustration. Did he not see that it wasn't just Claire? It was the entire family that scrutinized and belittled me. "Struggling doesn't seem to bother her much," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "She's so entrenched in her own world that she wouldn't recognize talent if it hit her in the face." I felt stronger, the anger bubbling up like a geyser ready to erupt. "I'm not here to beg for their acceptance, Alex. I'm tired of being the underdog in this story." He sighed, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "I just want you to be happy, to find your place in this family. I thought that maybe if you showed them your work, they'd see." "See what, Alex?" I interrupted, my voice rising slightly. "That I'm not a charity case, that I'm not just your wife but an artist with dreams. They don't care about my talent, they care about status and money. I realize that now." The words tumbled out raw and honest, and I felt a weight lift as I acknowledged my feelings. "Maybe it's time I stopped trying to fit into their mold," I continued, fueled by a sudden determination. I had spent so long trying to appease them, but it was becoming clearer that their approval would never come. I had to find my own path, one that did not depend on their validation. As the evening wore on, I re-entered the living room with renewed resolve. I was done with Claire's taunts, done with the suffocating expectations of my in-laws. I could feel the tension in the air still, but something had shifted within me. I was no longer just a victim in this narrative, I was ready to reclaim my story. When Claire launched into another tirade about her latest shopping spree, I decided it was time to speak up. You know, Claire, not everyone finds fulfillment in material things, I said, my voice steady. Some of us find joy in our passions, no matter how small they may seem to you. The room fell silent, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. It was exhilarating to finally stand my ground. Claire looked taken aback, her expression shifting from amusement to irritation. "Oh, please, passion doesn't pay the bills, sweetheart," she shot back, but I could see a flicker of discomfort in her eyes. The laughter had faded as the rest of my in-laws processed my words, and for the first time, I felt empowered. I knew this was just the beginning of a long battle, but I was prepared to fight for my dignity. I had spent too long letting their contempt dictate my self-worth. As I glanced around the room, I could see the expressions of shock on their faces. Perhaps they were realizing that I was no longer the silent wallflower they could dismiss. As the evening came to a close, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was done being underestimated. This growing resentment had ignited a fire within me, one that would push me to stand tall against the family that had so cruelly belittled me. I would prove them wrong, not just for their sake, but for my own. In that moment, I realized that my worth was not measured by their standards, but by my determination to carve out a place for myself in this world. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to embrace the challenges that lay in wait. The next chapter of my life was about to begin, and I wouldn't let anyone, especially not my in-laws, hold me back any longer. As I stepped back into the mansion, the atmosphere felt even heavier than before, laden with the weight of unspoken judgments and thinly veiled criticisms. I had endured enough. Claire's taunts had cut deeper than I cared to admit, and within me a storm was brewing, a determination that had been long buried under the layers of their disdain. I needed to reclaim my identity, to rise from the shadows they had cast upon me. The dinner table was set, its opulence a stark reminder of their wealth. As we settled in, I could feel the tension simmering, the air thick with unexpressed feelings. The rich aromas wafting from the kitchen were a contrast to the bitterness that had begun to seep into my heart. Claire, sitting across from me, wore a smug smile as she recounted a story about her latest shopping spree, a tale designed to eclipse my existence. "And then I found this incredible handbag, limited edition, of course," she said, her eyes sparkling with delight. "Only a few made it to the market, and I just had to have it. You can't imagine how rare it is to own something so exquisite." The laughter that followed felt like a dagger aimed directly at my self-worth, but for the first time, instead of shrinking back, I leaned forward, my voice steady. "It must be nice to live in a world where the worth of a person is measured by the price tag on their accessories," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. The room fell silent, eyes darting between Claire and me, a mix of disbelief and curiosity. I felt a rush of adrenaline. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe I could finally voice the truth that had simmered beneath the surface for far too long. Not everyone has the luxury of defining their value by material possessions, I continued, my heart pounding in my chest. Some of us find our worth in passion and perseverance. Claire's expression hardened, her facade cracking for just a moment. "Well, good luck with that. Passion doesn't pay the bills," she shot back, but her words had lost their sting. I could see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, and it fueled my fire. As the evening wore on, I felt a shift within myself. No longer was I the passive victim. I was ready to confront the reality of my situation. I had been allowing them to dictate my worth for too long, but the truth was, I had plans, ambitious plans that I had kept hidden from everyone, including Alex. Underneath the layers of humiliation and the facade of a struggling artist, I had been quietly cultivating a startup, a venture that had the potential to change everything for me. With small investments I had made over the years, I had managed to secure a modest portfolio that far surpassed what anyone in this room would have guessed. I had always been smart with my finances, learning to invest wisely, but I had kept it a closely guarded secret, believing that revealing my financial prowess would only lead to further contempt from my in-laws. They had always treated me as if I were beneath them, and the last thing I wanted was to give them more ammunition to use against me. But perhaps it was time. Perhaps I could turn their expectations on their heads. The thought exhilarated me as I contemplated the possibilities. I envisioned their astonishment when they learned the truth, when I showed them that I wasn't just a struggling artist, but a woman with genuine financial acumen. As the evening drew to a close, I felt invigorated. I could no longer let Claire and the others dictate how I felt about myself. I had a plan, and it was more than just a dream. It was a reality waiting to unfold. If they thought I was just a nobody in their wealthy world, they were in for a rude awakening. "Alex," I said, pulling him aside as the family began to disperse after dinner. "I need to talk to you about something important." His brow furrowed in concern, but I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I've been working on a project, something that could really change my situation. I haven't mentioned it before because I wanted to make sure it was viable, but I think it's time to share it with you." "What do you mean?" he asked, his eyes widening in curiosity. "I've been investing more than just my art. I've been building something, and it's growing. I've kept it under wraps because I was afraid of how your family would react, but I can't hide it anymore. I don't want to feel ashamed of what I've accomplished." Alex's expression shifted from concern to intrigue. "You've been investing, you never told me." I nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation. "I know I've been sidelined by them, but I've been working hard to build my own path. And I'm ready to show them that I'm not just your wife, I'm an investor too." His eyes softened, and I could see a flicker of pride. "I'm glad you're finally standing up for yourself. You deserve to be recognized for your talents and efforts, not just as an afterthought." The conversation ignited something within me. I felt empowered and ready to take control of my narrative. The next family gathering would be different. I wouldn't just be the woman who painted in the corners. I would be the woman who stood confidently in the spotlight, ready to reveal the truth of who I really was. As I prepared to share my journey with Alex, I knew that the next confrontation with my in-laws would not be one of humiliation, but of revelation. They wouldn't know what hit them when they discovered that the underestimated artist was, in fact, a savvy investor with plans that extended far beyond their narrow perceptions. I was no longer just a victim of their scorn. I was about to become the architect of my own destiny. As I pulled Alex aside, the weight of the moment pressed on my chest. The atmosphere around us buzzed with the remnants of dinner, laughter still echoing in the grand hall, but I was focused solely on him. "I've been working on a project, something that could really change everything for us," I said, my voice steady despite the nerves swirling in my stomach. "What do you mean?" Alex asked, his brow furrowing with concern. I took a deep breath and decided it was time to lay my cards on the table. I had kept this secret for too long, and it was time to reveal the truth. "Remember those investments I mentioned in passing? The ones I said were just small side projects?" I began, gauging his reaction. His eyes widened slightly, a hint of confusion mixed with curiosity. "They're more significant than I let on. I've been quietly building a startup, and I've also invested in some promising ventures. It's not just art for me anymore, Alex. I've been working hard to secure our future." He blinked, processing my words. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" There was a mix of concern and admiration in his voice. "You've been doing all this on your own." "Yes, and it's been tough, but now with the family's treatment of me, I can't hide it anymore. I need you to understand that I'm not just the artist they think I am. I'm capable of so much more," I explained, my heart racing. "And there's something else. I have a stake in the family business, a significant one." His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "What, how? I thought that was solely in your parents' hands." "Technically it is," I admitted. "But my father-in-law made some poor investments a few years back, and I stepped in without anyone knowing. I bought shares when they were low, and now I control a substantial portion of the company. If the family tries to undermine me or steal my inheritance, they're going to find out just how wrong they are." Before Alex could respond, the door to the mansion swung open, and Claire stepped into the room, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "What are you two whispering about?" she asked, feigning innocence. The tension in the air thickened. It was like she could sense the shift in power, but she had no idea how much had changed. "Just discussing some family matters," I replied coolly, my heart pounding. "You know, the kind that involves respect." She scoffed, her expression dripping with condescension. Respect is earned, dear. And you've done nothing to earn it in this family. At that moment, I felt a surge of confidence. That's where you're wrong, Claire. I've earned my place and I'm tired of being underestimated. I could see her eyes narrowing, the flicker of surprise crossing her face. In fact, I think it's time everyone learns exactly who I am. Just as I finished speaking, the family lawyer, Mr. Thompson, walked into the room, his presence commanding immediate attention. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice firm, I have an important announcement regarding the family business and its ownership structure. Claire's smug smile faltered, and I sensed the tension shift. What do you mean? She snapped, her confidence wavering. I exchanged a knowing glance with Alex, feeling the anticipation build between us. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. It has come to my attention that there have been some misunderstandings about the company's financial situation and its stakeholders. He paused, scanning the room, before continuing. I must clarify that the shares held by Mrs. My last name are far more significant than previously thought. She is not just a minor investor, she is one of the principal stakeholders in the family business. The room fell silent, the weight of his words crashing down like a tidal wave. Claire's face turned pale, her bravado crumbling as the reality of my secret ownership settled in. No, that can't be true, she stammered, her voice shaking. It is true, Mr. Thompson affirmed, his gaze steady. She has invested wisely over the years and has been a silent partner in the company. This means she has the authority to influence decisions and hold a significant share of the profits. I could see the shock ripple through the room, and for the first time, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. The family who had once looked down upon me now had to reckon with the reality of my position. Claire, I said, my voice unwavering, this is the moment where you learn that respect goes both ways. I will not be treated as a second-class citizen in this family any longer. You will acknowledge my contributions and my worth, or there will be consequences. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The laughter that once filled the room had vanished, replaced by a heavy silence that spoke volumes. I've endured the humiliation, the belittling comments, and the condescension long enough, I continued, my heart racing as I stood my ground. I will not be a pawn in your games anymore. It's time for boundaries, and it's time for you all to recognize my value. Alex stepped forward, his pride evident as he placed a hand on my shoulder. I stand with her. We are a team, and we will not allow this family's toxic dynamics to dictate our lives any longer. The tension in the room shifted again, this time toward acceptance. Perhaps they could see that I was no longer the quiet artist they had dismissed. I was a force to be reckoned with, and I would demand the respect I deserved. As the evening drew to a close, I felt a sense of liberation. No longer trapped by their expectations or their disdain, I had reclaimed my dignity. I had transformed from an undervalued family member into an unexpected authority figure, and I was ready to forge my own path. In that moment, I knew that true wealth was not measured solely by monetary holdings or material possessions, but by the strength of character, self-worth, and the courage to stand up for oneself. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more stories where the underdog finally gets the justice they deserve. I smiled, knowing I had finally found my voice.